Good afternoon, and it's nice to see a lot of people coming in on a Saturday. Right? Uh, to start off with, I am Vasuki Vardhan. Right? I work as a tech lead over here at GeekyAnts. I do mostly backend. I also work on the infrastructure side, DevOps, and also a bit on the front end. So mostly a full stack uh, developer over here, right? So, yeah, coming to the entire point of this meetup one, right? Why Spring Boot and why it is caught up on the hype very long back, and it is very relatable even to date, right? So, I mean, the very first point to start off with, it is very quick and easy to get started, right? So you have the Spring initializer and a lot of these things. Like most of your boilerplate code is hand provided to you, right? You don't need to go ahead and configure a lot of things. A lot of things are ready to work straight from the get go, right? And the next thing is it is production ready. That is what a lot of the enterprises are more interested on, right? So any product that they would want to use to build their products need to be production ready. With components like Apache Tomcat being their embedded server and a lot of other things, right? This is completely production ready, right? And this has been tried and tested from a very long time, right? So even from the days of Spring MVC, right? So you would see the use of Apache Tomcat, right? So in Spring MVC, you would basically build a war or a jar and go ahead and deploy it onto Apache Tomcat server or even JBoss or all those Java serverlets, right? So, but with Spring Boot, you already have it inbuilt, right? With Apache Tomcat. So those are a few key things which makes it production ready, and it is also very scalable, right? So multi-threading is built into the baseline of the entire framework, right? And the load handling capacity is very high, and also in terms of just code scalability, and in terms of traffic scalability, it is pretty much almost sorted, right? So you can basically use your solid principles, expand your code, and with multi-threading and all the things that Spring Boot already provides with Apache Tomcat, it is also very scalable on the network load, right? And it is very extensible, right? So you almost have around, like, at the very least you have around 100 to 150 starter modules that is available right in the Spring initializer, right? So I mean, it is very extensible. You can basically go ahead and tune Spring Boot into how you want it, right? Rather than it telling you what you can do and what you can't do. With the extensibility that it provides through plugins, you can basically go ahead and do all things necessary, right? And also, I mean, the entire community is very active, right? And we see a lot of people right over here, right? Spring Boot also has a very active community. I mean, from my earlier days of programming till date, I haven't really felt any particular issue with the community. I mean, anytime goes via Stack Overflow or anywhere, right? People are already available. Even though if it's a very small beginner issue to very complicated enterprise issues, you will find help on the community, right? It's really nice to have that. So coming to the core principles of Spring Boot, right? The first and main foremost thing is auto configuration, and this is probably there from the days of Spring MVC with XML configurations, but currently with annotations, it has become more easier, right? Like you just go ahead and define a few parameters in your properties file, and your database gets configured. Right? You define a few parameters for your server, your port numbers, SSL, everything is configured for you, right? You really don't need to go ahead and do all those things at the code level, right? You don't need to write your DSL code, and it is very opinionated, right? So it comes with a bit of defaults, like its default in-memory database is H2, right? And it also uses Apache Tomcat as its embedded server, but that doesn't really limit you, right? It gives you an option, you can go ahead and change all those things. Like you don't want to use Tomcat, you want to use ZT. You can still go ahead and do that. You can change your embedded server. You don't want to use H2, you want to use something like Postgres, MySQL, or even MongoDB for that matter, right? It also allows you to do that. It is completely opinionated. You can go ahead and configure it however you want it. And also, the best part is it is not all about configurations, right? Spring Boot has its own conventions to do it, right? So giving you a lot of opinionated defaults. I mean, if you miss a lot of configurations, a few configurations for that matter, your application is still well configured, right? You don't really need to worry about, okay, my configuration is messed up from the get-go, right? You don't need to go ahead and configure a server or any of those kind of things, right? So you have a set of defaults, right? For example, in Node.js or any particular case scenario, you would have to go ahead and provide the port number, for example, right? A very basic thing. With Spring Boot, you even if you skip that, it is fine. Right? You know for a fact that by default it will run on port 8080. Right? So those are a few things where it is more convention driven over configuration. So again, it will give you a lot of space to work on your own rather than being preconceived onto the configuration bits, right? And also, as we discussed before, it eliminates a lot of boilerplate code, right? You don't need to go ahead and write all the things to connect to a database and all those things. You give a particular configuration, you have it already over there, right? With data JPA, you also have a way to connect and query your DB, right? You don't need to go ahead and write those implementations anywhere, right? It is already provided to you, right? So, being said that, I mean, solid principles. This is one of the core uh, things based on which from the days of Spring MVC it is built on, right? Right. So every class that you see in Spring Boot is mostly single responsibility. Like, for example, let's take REST template, right? REST template, that's a single entity class, single responsibility. What it does, it just calls another REST API and gives you the response, right? Single responsibility. And that is something that even you would follow in your code, right? A lot of things that you define per class is for a particular responsibility. You wouldn't want to go ahead and change that. And also open and close principle. Like it provides you a lot of interfaces so that you can go ahead and extend your functionality, right? For example, your web MVC configurer, a very basic term most of you people would have used to add your global course configuration, right? So Web MVC configurer is an already available class which is open to extension but it's close to mutation. Right? You extend, you make it configurable for your use, but you can't actually go ahead and change those uh, actual implementations. Right? That is there, and also list call substitution. Right? So it basically almost all the classes that you inherit in Spring Boot mostly also does all the things that its superclass does, right? So basically, it's a one-on-one substitution with extras, right? I mean, this is something that even we would follow a lot of times in writing code, right? Very few times this is a bit wavy to for everyone to get their heads on, but most of the people would have already done this. Right? Interface segregation, right? So you write your services, implement your services, and you give the services exported onto another class via an interface, right? You basically abstract it. What this allows you to do is something known as a decorator pattern. This is something that you would have widely heard in the Spring Boot terms, right? And also it is being cast upon a lot more other platforms these days, right? So basically, let's say you have one interface and you have two service classes implementing them, right? Now at runtime, with interface segregation, you can basically pick and choose which implementation you would want to use, right? And that being said, that is where dependency inversion comes into play. It basically your auto wired principles, right? A lot of your auto wired is basically your dependency inversion. It injects your dependency for you, right? And that is done via your interface segregation. A lot of times you actually input auto wire your interface rather than your service class, right? The best example for this is your repository classes, right? Repositories are usually interfaces, right? So most of your CRUD repositories, Mongo repositories that you would have already used is an interface. You don't actually go ahead and inject a service class over there, right? You just import a repository interface and you go ahead with it. So that being said, and how are we contributing to GeekyAnts? As GeekyAnts contributing to Spring Boot community and what we are doing with it, right? These are a few things that we are using as of now in our organization. So most of our things are in cloud, right? So we are mostly focused on giving solutions on Spring Cloud. So we heavily use Spring Cloud Config, right? So this basically provides us a way to keep all our configs in sync, right? So probably these days we can also do it with a lot of things on your cloud providers, vaults, or even you can use Spring Cloud or HashiCorp Vault, right? But currently we are using Cloud Config. We also use OpenFane. This is mostly when we want to create an enterprise service bus kind of an implementation. So this is where we use this declarative REST implementation, right? Spring Cloud Functions. This is something that we are starting to push lot more these days for your set types of executions, right? So let's say you want to run an audit report every 24 hours, or you want to run a financial report every 24 hours. So your cloud function is very efficient to do that, right? A small microservice which runs only on a fashion. So that is where we are. For those kind of use cases, we mostly are pushing into cloud functions, right? And Eureka is something that we use a lot these days, right? Service discovery has helped us create service meshes on a very large scale. It has also helped us scale up into very good numbers, right? And also we work with cloud contracts. I mean, this is probably a very low used component these days, right? But what it essentially does is it'll give you an abstraction stub, right? Let's say you want to run a mock server, right? Spring Cloud Contract will give that for you. I mean, it's a declarative contract, like you already have your open API spec and you want to create a set of mocks. This will provide that for you. And also with Spring Cloud Contract, you can also go ahead and uh, do real world load testing, right? It can simulate your load testing as well. So mostly we use it for mocking servers and we also use it for integration testing, right? And Cloud Commons is basically an utility package that we try to use as far as we can, right? So that this provides most of your common utilities in one single package that your Spring Cloud as a whole uses. Right? We are currently using this, but again, that is a mix of our own common utilities and the cloud common utilities. Like, and we are also running Spring in a lot of different cloud environments. So we are running it on Azure, we are running it on GCP, we are running it on AWS, we are running it on Kubernetes, right? So most of the case scenarios we are leveraging on Spring Cloud platform itself. So we are using these plugins to go ahead and basically make it more native to the platform that we are building it on, right? So that it is able to talk to the components of the infrastructure itself more seamlessly, right? So, for example, if you want to talk to your Azure Key Vault, right? So with Azure Cloud, Spring Cloud, it allows you to do managed identity authentications, which are passwordless, more secure, right? And it also gives a way to build out a lot of seamless integrations into the Azure platform itself, right? So that is where we are. And on the database part, these are a few things that we are extensively using these days. Spring Data JPA is probably the most commonly used. Probably everyone would have used at some point of a time for your SQL DBs, and the same goes for MongoDB, right? This is one of the more commonly used. And we also are using Redis for a lot of caching scenarios, and we also use Cassandra for a lot of high throughput database interactions, right? And also a few other components that we are using these days is Spring Security, but as of date, we are more focusing on your Spring Identity, right? That is currently coming up. It can give you an open ID kind of an implementation. So, but as of date, we are still using the Spring Security itself. So we are currently even migrating towards Spring GraphQL, the version one that has already come out, and we are already extensively using it, and is also in production and working really well for us, right? And Spring Sessions is also something that we are using to handle our contextual sessions while running into stateful applications. And Spring AQMP is something that we use to contact any one of our data brokers, right? Your message brokers. So we usually combine this with AQMP with one of your Spring Cloud platform providers. So something like Spring AQMP with Spring Cloud Azure or Spring AQMP with Spring Cloud GCP, right? So that we can talk to the infrastructure's native service bus, right? So these are a few things that we are doing as of date with Spring Boot, right? And we're also actively uh, communicating and collaborating with a lot of people on the community as well. You can find a lot of us active on the community, right? And as we spoke, right? So these are the few topics that we'll be talking in this particular meetup, right? So the first thing is about the Graal VM, right? It's mostly the hot topic these days, coming into its smaller footprint, faster execution capabilities, and all those things, right? So we're taking, uh, Divya Prakash will be talking about that. Then we have value objects that Somik will be talking about, and we have Spring Security, right? Which Vikrant will be talking about, and we'll be talking about GraphQL as well.